Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Norman Maness. I'm the director of the National Education Project. On behalf of the board of directors of this project, I'm delighted to welcome you all here and across the country, around the world actually, to the second annual live reading of the Bill of Rights over the internet. The Bill of Rights is the single document that preserves the liberties of the people. The Founding Fathers wrote it as a separate document to the Constitution 223 years ago to make sure that the liberties and the rights of the people are on a piece of paper so everybody would know what these rights are, and to prohibit government from doing things government ought not to be doing, given their experience with King George of England. The document itself, if you haven't seen it for a while, looks like this, the Bill of Rights. There are 10 amendments, and we're rather proud of this version of the Bill of Rights, not because I changed anything, because I didn't, but people come to our website and they download it. It's free, obviously. Children signed it here, and they add their school picture, and then it goes on the family refrigerator door. We call it the Refrigerator Door Bill of Rights, and it has two purposes. The Founding Fathers said if you don't have the Bill of Rights in writing on a piece of paper, you can't possibly know your liberties as an American, and you can't. They could never really get it out to very many people given the technology of the day, but now we have this magical, fantastic device called the Internet. And people have downloaded this from our website for 4 years now in all 50 states, in the District of Columbia, and in 74 countries around the world. Now, why would all these other countries be interested in our Bill of Rights? Well, it's because they all have the same problem we do and all societies have had, which is how do you balance the power of the central government, the legitimate power of the central government, against the liberties of the people? How do you do that? Well, the Founding Fathers found out how to do it. If we do the things that are said here, freedom of speech, freedom of religious practice, freedom of the press, and so forth, you will have a free society on 2 pages. And it's been downloaded in, as I say, 74 countries all around the world, doing the same thing we try to do here in America, which is balance the power of government against the liberties of the people, a balancing act that has gone on for 223 years and will never end. But that's the nature of our government. The second thing about children signing it and putting their picture on it is that the larger lesson is it belongs to them. And it does. It is the Bill of Rights of the people. Sometimes we think it's the Bill of Rights of the government. It's not. It's the Bill of Rights of the people of the country. And one of the things we're doing tonight and in future nights on December 15th, which is the Bill of Rights birthday, is bequeath the liberties and the rights of American citizens to the next generation of Americans who are represented by the children here this evening. I got started on this when I just got very lucky and ended up at a job at the Supreme Court where I was personal aide to the Chief Justice Warren Burger, a great man, a great friend of this project, and a great friend to me. He's gone now, but I do think a word ought to be said on his behalf, since he meant so much to me, and a lot of what we're doing tonight is because of his influence. People asked me in those days, I remember I had a young woman come up to me at a party and she said, "My goodness, what did you have to know to be the personal aide to the Chief Justice of the United States?" And I said, well, you have to know 2 things. You have to know that Warren Burger is Chief Justice of the United States and you're not. If you know those 2 things, you'll probably have a happy association. And I did. I love that old man. And he was wonderful to us and to this project. He was also not a member of the board of directors for some years until he died. We have with us tonight children from 3 schools in the greater Washington area who will be reading the Bill of Rights in just a few moments. Springfield Estates Elementary School in Springfield, Virginia, St. Peter's School on Capitol Hill here in Washington where we are now, and Holy Family Catholic School from Hillcrest Heights, Maryland. We are delighted that they are all here. The children have worked hard. They've practiced their amendments, which they will be reading in short order. But given the kind of event this is, I think it proper to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mrs. Mary Hawkins, principal of Holy Family Catholic School, has agreed to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mrs. Hawkins, if you would, please. Please stand, everyone.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mary. And second, since this is a festive occasion, we have been very fortunate that Mrs. Hawkins brought with her from Holy Family Catholic School, Mr. Jeffrey Scott. We're delighted he's here, and he will now play as we sing a song on my sheet, God Bless America. Mr. Scott, if you'd lead us in.
God bless America, and that I love, stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Thank you all. We have a number of friends of mine and colleagues over the years who have agreed to help us in introducing the children. And I'd like to ask them all to please stand and be recognized. Captain Renato Caldwell, the Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia, if you would all stay standing. Ms. Mitzen De La Rosa, Senior Legislative Assistant, Washington Office of Congressman Ralph Hall, the 4th Congressional District of Texas. Mr. Jan Horbally, who is just an old buddy of mine from the Supreme Court who got roped into this at the last minute. You know, this is going out over the whole universe, Jan. Mrs. Mary Hawkins, again, Principal, Holy Family Catholic School, Hillcrest Heights, Maryland. Mrs. Marie Horbally, Professor, North Virginia Community College. Miss Allison Medema, who is a 4th grade teacher at St. Peter's School on Capitol Hill. Sergeant James Pierce, U.S. Army combat veteran who was wounded in Afghanistan. We thank you for your service, Sergeant. Mrs. Mary Randolph, Principal of Springfield States Elementary School in Springfield, Virginia. And Ms. Jane Sarnicki, Legislative Fellow, the Washington Office of Senator Roger Wicker, the state of Mississippi. And I'm missing one, and I apologize. Mr. Andrew House, thank you. Holy Family Catholic School in Hillcrest Heights, Maryland. We had 2 people who didn't show, so we sort of rounded up these people. They were just wandering by, and we grabbed them because we had a police officer here who could help us in that regard. Thank you all. If you'd please be seated. Thank you. Tonight's a special night for another reason. We invited 2 distinguished gentlemen from the Congress to join us, and unfortunately, due to illness and car accidents, they were not able to. But they ought to be recognized. One is Congressman Ralph Hall of the 4th Congressional District of Texas, who is the oldest serving member of the Congress, and Congressman John Dingell, the 12th Congressional District of Michigan, who is the longest serving congressman in the history of the United States. But that's not why I thought it might be a good thing to honor them tonight. They are the last 2 veterans of World War II serving in the United States Congress. They'll only be there a few more weeks. When the new Congress comes in January, there will be no veterans of World War II in the Congress of the United States. This is a great loss. That generation saved this country. When you say that, it sounds kind of like a slogan, you know, that sort of thing, but they really did. And the reason they did, and 400,000 Americans who died in that war, what they saved us from was the result of this little bitty plane. This is the Me-262, the Messerschmitt 262, which was the first operational jet fighter in the world. And we didn't have it, the Germans did. It was produced in the late 1930s. It was brand new technology. Nobody else had anything like it. And by the early 40s or mid-40s, during World War II, it was possible Hitler could have gotten this into the air, but he decided to delay production for whatever reason. But by the time he found he needed it, he did get it into the air in late 1944. Why it was so dangerous to us was because 100 miles an hour faster than any plane we had, including the fighters. And it was shooting our planes out of the sky. It was so dangerous that they almost decided to stop daylight bombing over Europe because of the bombers, this thing would just simply blow up with one pass. And since they were so fast, we didn't see them coming and we didn't see them go. We just saw some plane exploding with 10 airmen killed. If he had gotten these up earlier in the war, there would have been no daylight bombing of Europe. There would have been no D-Day invasion on Normandy beaches because there would have been no air cover for the Allied forces. And the great tank battles that the Russians won on the Eastern Front, they would have lost because they would have had no air cover, all because of this little Me-262. And we had nothing like it, by the way. If he had cleared the sky of our bombers, his industrial plants and factories would have gone on unimpeded, and he would have had the 2 more years he needed to create a third rocket. He'd already created 2, and this rocket could travel to the United States with an atomic warhead. It would have landed on Detroit, on the shipbuilding facilities on the East Coast, and at some point, once he had obliterated millions of Americans, Harry Truman would have had to ask for peace, and Adolf Hitler, for the first time in the history of the world, would have conquered the entire world. Not a regional conqueror like Julius Caesar or Alexander the Great or the Mongol kings, but actually conquer the entire earth. This little plane, if he'd only gotten it up a little bit sooner. It is men like Congressman Hall and Dingell, all the Americans, men and women both, who served in that war, including an uncle of mine who died fighting with the Marines at Guadalcanal. He was 17 years old. He was my mother's youngest brother. She never got over that loss and kept the flag from his military funeral till the day she died. People have paid great prices for the freedom that we enjoy, and those freedoms are, of course, right here, which we certainly would have lost under a regime of the Nazis. So I thought it was proper tonight to say a word to mention the World War II generation, which did save this country. We have tonight a most distinguished guest speaker, an old friend of mine and an old friend of this project, who is Councilmember Tommy Wells of the Council of the District of Columbia. He's representing Ward 6, which is my ward. Councilmember Wells has been a help to us in many, many ways. He was here last year, the first time we did this. He helped read the Constitution on the Mall some years ago when we celebrated Constitution Day. And Congressman Wells has been head of any number of committees for the government of this city and done surpassingly great things on every one of them. I've lived here since 1977, so I've seen some of the great work he has done on behalf of the people. He's been very kind to come to speak to us tonight. He is a legislator, and he is chair of the Committee on the Judiciary. And in that role, sees how law can be used to benefit the people with as little restriction on the liberties of the people as possible. A very, very difficult line to walk. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pride and gratitude I introduce to you an old friend of mine, Councilmember Tommy Wells.
Norman, thank you very much, and thank you for the National Education Project, your leadership, and to continue to remind us, teach us, and educate us about how important our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and how great this country is that was built around this great document. Thank you very much. And good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Hill Center here on Capitol Hill. This used to be an old naval hospital built right at the end of the Civil War. And it's had different purposes, and now it's a community center here on Capitol Hill, and it's great to have you here and have events like this. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, but the thing to remember is about well over 250 years ago, after there had been another great war, the war against a sovereign king who wanted to rule everyone that lived in America, and there was a big revolution and a fight about who should rule who and what rights should people have. And so finally, after America won its freedom, and we had these different states, that we then had to figure out how were we going to govern ourselves. And so we tried the Articles of Confederation. Didn't work exactly right. They thought that the federal government, brought together by all the states, should have a little bit more power. and that the Articles of Confederation did not give the government enough power. So they wrote a constitution. And the Constitution essentially laid out the powers of the federal government, that there will be a president, that there will be a Congress to pass laws, and there will be a Supreme Court to interpret the laws, 3 branches of government. And so they felt pretty good about this, and it wasn't easy to pass because it created a powerful national government, and they had just gotten out from under a king, so they wanted to be sure they weren't creating a new king because it was clear that now the people were sovereign instead of a king being the sovereign. So they argued, like we continue to argue in so many ways in our current Congress, and they argued and said, you know what, we're creating a powerful federal government, but what about the rights of the people? And so some people said, you know, if you start listing what the rights are, if you leave anything out, people will think, well, then you don't have a right to that. So let's just assume you have all your rights. We fought for all this. And others said, no, I'm a little afraid of having a strong, powerful federal government. As people, we need to know what our rights are, and it needs to be in this same document. So they argued, and they argued. And what they ended up doing is they passed the Constitution without the individual rights. And so they passed the Constitution in 1788. And a lot of people were pretty unhappy. And they didn't want to ratify the Constitution as it was unless there were some rights in there. So they finally proposed and fought through the Bill of Rights. 10 amendments. 2 things to know about that. One is that they acknowledge this Constitution was not perfect. It left things out, and it needed to be amended, and they had only just passed it almost 4 years before, and it was time to amend it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that they couldn't agree on everything. And there was even a fist fight between the congressional representatives as they duked it out, saying what rights should individuals have. Passions ran high. So they came out with finally 10 amendments. And they did that pretty much all at once in the same year of 1791. Now, since then, we've agreed, we've fought, we've continued to say this document is not perfect. We needed the Constitution to be amended to end slavery. We needed to amend the Constitution to give women the right to vote in their own country. And we continually made amendments, and we made an amendment allowing the people of the District of Columbia to vote for president. Now, the document's still not perfect. Some of us, I'm a city councilman here in D.C., we think we need to go a little bit further. The people of the District of Columbia need to have all the same rights as every other American who is governed by this powerful federal government. So we still have work to do. But even then, even with 27 amendments, this was the first Constitution like it passed anywhere in the world. And even now, with 27 amendments, it's the shortest, it is the shortest Constitution in the world, which means we got a lot of it right, but I cannot say enough about how important it was to have a Bill of Rights to say what our rights are with our government. Now, what does that mean for me? Right now, we have protests. We've always had some protests and some different rights to be able to protest against our government and not get in too much trouble for it, because you have to have a right to free speech. And we have to figure out what that means. And so we see that we're the nation's capital. A lot of protesters come here. And what we want to do is give people the right to protest, but at the same time, be sure that everyone's safe and that they don't go too far, and that the rights of the citizens that are impacted by the protest are well balanced. And now recently, the other thing about these rights is sometimes the Supreme Court, where Norman worked for many years, say, you know what, I think those past Supreme Court justices got it wrong. And they'll take one of these rights that we're going to hear today, and they'll say, you know what, it really means something different. Or we weren't interpreting it right. And what does that mean for me? The right to bear arms has been interpreted in different ways, and that's whether you can legally have a gun or not. In the District of Columbia, we had a complete ban on guns. And then the Supreme Court said, you know what, you can't have a complete ban on guns because the Second Amendment says you have a right to bear arms. And so we rewrote the law, then the law was overturned, and now I've spent about 6 months rewriting that law. And we're going to continue to rewrite these laws, especially around the Second Amendment, until it's clear what did they mean when they said you have a right to bear arms. Is it any kind of gun, any number of guns, at any age? And, you know, as we get into the next things of modern life, what is a gun? Is it like a gun on Star Wars? Is it a gun that, you know, is a laser? What is a gun? So as we continue to go forward with our Bill of Rights and understanding what it means for a modern world, each of these 10 amendments that we're going to read tonight, we know that we're going to need you as students, as you one day become a legislator like me, or a Supreme Court justice, or in some other role to where you're going to have to continue to know what these Bill of Rights are, why they're so important, and also to understand that now and then, I know I've made mistakes, and you're going to have to correct them as we continue to perfect this union. So with that, I'm so pleased to be here, and thank you very much for holding this in my home ward, in Ward 6, here in the District of Columbia. It is time now for these esteemed scholars and the wonderful Americans that have come here to introduce them for the reading of our Bill of Rights. And so why don't we start with the First Amendment.
Good evening. I'm Jane Sarnecki, and it's my honor to introduce Alex Carpentier from St. Peter's School, who will read the First Amendment.
Congress shall not make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
Good evening. I am Marie Horbally, and it is my honor and pleasure to introduce Alexander Davis from Springfield Estates Elementary School, and Alexander will be reading the Second Amendment.
A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Maybe we could hold their applause till they're all done, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mitson De La Rosa, and it is my honor to introduce Christina Johnson from Holy Family Catholic School, who will read the Third Amendment.
No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house, without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in manner to be prescribed by law.
Good evening. I'm Andrew House, and it's my honor to introduce Zoe Bielkin from St. Peter's School, who will read the Fourth Amendment.
The right of people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized.
Good evening. My name is Staff Sergeant James Pierce, and it's my honor to introduce Natalie Ventura. She's from Springfield Estates Elementary School. She'll be reading the Fifth Amendment.
No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime, unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising a land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property, without due progress of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use, without just compensation.
Good evening, I'm Allison Miedema, and it is my honor to introduce McKenna Sullivan from St. Peter's School, who will read the Sixth Amendment.
In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense.
Good evening. My name is Jan Horbley. It's my honor to introduce Samuel Kaner. He's a student at Springfield Estates Elementary School, and he's going to read the Seventh Amendment.
In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law.
Good evening. I'm Mary Hawkins, and it's my honor to introduce Ashley Johnson from Holy Family Catholic School, who will read Eighth Amendment.
Excessive bail should not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted.
Good evening. I'm Captain Bernardo Caldwell. It is my honor to introduce Micah Cooper from St. Peter's School, who will read the Ninth Amendment.
The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people.
Good evening. I'm Mary Randolph, and it's my honor to introduce Ronald Henderson from Springfield Estates Elementary School, who will read the 10th Amendment.
The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people.
Ladies and gentlemen, the reading of the Bill of Rights is concluded. Now, please. And we want to thank all our young scholars for a wonderful job. Thank you very much. In a few minutes, we'll retire for birthday cake, the birthday of the Bill of Rights, and lemonade and coffee and tea. But first, I also think we should show our gratitude to Congressman Tommy Wells. I'm so delighted you came in here with us tonight, Tommy. Thank you. Well, this great night should end as it began, with singing, and Mr. Jeffrey Scott will lead us into God Bless America, My Country 'Tis of Thee, and Old Lang Syne. Mr. Scott? I'm sorry, what?
liberty of thee I sing, and where my fathers died, and of the pilgrims cried, from every mountain side, let freedom ring.
Auld Lang Syne. Well, I guess that's it for another year, ladies and gentlemen. The only thing left to say is to bequeath the Bill of Rights to the next generation is a great thing indeed. We've begun that tonight. To all of you, teachers, principals, the parents, grandparents, all who came, especially the children, I just want you to know how very grateful I am. This is a great service to this country. You cannot know what your rights are in this country if you don't have the Bill of Rights on a piece of paper in your hands. And people can come to this website and others and download it and have the riches that America offers for everybody. So I would only say this: God bless these great children, God bless America, and God bless the Bill of Rights. Thank you, and good night.